Well, you drink skim milk, don't you?
No, I drink no milk.
No, you don't drink any milk at all?
No milk, no. Milk is for babies. When you grow up, you have to drink beer.
Nano is for babies. When you grow up, you have to fly Polarized battleships.
Hello everyone. In this video I will be going over some polarized fits that were made more viable with the plate and extender roll bonuses. I've been roaming in battleships more often again, as I've found it's easier to entice others to actually fight compared to roaming in cruisers, frigates, and other small ships. Of course, roaming in battleships invites others to bring out hard counters, but that in itself can sometimes create a better scenario where people overestimate themselves, but at least it enables the fight to occur. In anticipation of this overreaction, I've utilized the new battleship roll bonuses to make polarized fits have relatively decent hit point amounts, and for my fits shown, they sit right around 100,000 hit points. My original goal was to make it where a solo battleship could theoretically counter a marauder, but I think polarized weapons need a slight tweak to make that happen, and whether that actually needs to happen is another story. There is a slight chance you could kill a marauder with these fits, but you typically need to rely on fighting ratting fits like a single rep paladin or Kronos. Vargers and golems will tank too much unless they're purely T2 fit. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to isolate a marauder in this video to test it out, but still wanted to share the potentially new options polarized battleships open up after the buffs. This is the first fit for or at least the first ship that I've been using for polarized fits. With all the plate and extender changes, in case you're not familiar, every battleship now has a 100% bonus to shield extender hit points and a 50% bonus to armor plate hit points, as well as an additional 5% bonus to reinforced bulkheads. But we're not going to talk about that. So this is the Typhoon Fleet issue. You know, you guys have seen me fly it a bunch already. This is a little bit different because I'm not using the double heavy newts. I'm actually using the other bonus on the Typhoon Fleet issue, which is the less impressive but useful in this situation, the large projectile turret rate of fire bonus. So this is kind of like an all-in ship. You know, everything you have is going into DPS. And actually the Typhoon Fleet issue is the highest DPS battleship in the game when you're using a polarized fit, or if you're just committing everything to DPS in this case. So in my situation, you know, I'm using torpedoes, polarized torpedo launchers, and then polarized autocannons, just two of them. But again, I'm still rate of fire bonused on both of them. Now, in the past, I would use polarized fits with, you know, 1, 2, maybe 3 plates, and then use a armor layering membrane to get, you know, just to kind of stack everything. But now it makes a lot more sense just to continue stacking the plates. So, because you get a lot more HP out of the plates now. I think you get about like 7,000 now out of armor plates, 7,200 on a Tech 2. So you get way more armor HP if you stack plates rather than using the energized membranes. So this is kind of the test base for this, was the Typhoon Fleet issue. Everything was relatively cheap in this situation. I did use 2 Imperial Navy 1600 plates. I have a Republic Fleet target painter just to get that extra application. And then just T1 rigs and stuff like that. The main thing I'm going for here, or what I'm shooting for a lot of my fits, is to get close to 100,000 EHP. Now, one thing I will say is that in all these fittings that I'm showing, I am using just like a few of the mid-grade amulets. So it's like the Alpha, Beta, and Epsilon, I think, whatever the cheapest ones are. Because, again, my goal is to get close to 100,000. I don't need to, or you don't need to use mid-grades. It's just, again, I have a number in my mind that I'm trying to get to because I think that's a solid number to actually survive. And so that's why I went for those mid-grades. You can go for the full set actually high grades are really good in this situation because they give you just a raw 40,000 hit points more. But I'll get into that more here in a second with my other fit. So this fit is everything cold is 2,266 DPS. But when you're using these fits, you're going to want to use pyro, and I also recommend using like a cheap damage implant, like a 3% implant or something like that, as that will get your DPS up even higher. And you primarily only want to heat the launchers. You don't want to heat the guns because that'll just nuke your heat really fast. But once you heat launchers, you're doing about 2,500 DPS. Again, once you have pyro, I use like a 5% pyro, and then the 3% rig, or I'm sorry, 3% implant, then that will get you 2,700 DPS. Again, it flies pretty much the exact same as all my other fits, so there's nothing really new there. The main thing is that you have, quad plates, which makes you really slow to align. But otherwise, if you've flown any torpedo battleship before, it pretty much flies the same way. You're just not using newts. And the reason why I don't include the newts on the polarized fits is because just how the meta has changed. There's no real reason that I can see to include newts anymore, at least with a polarized fit. Because for a polarized fit, you want to kill something fast. You don't want to drag it out by slowly neuting them down. And there's a lot of ships out there now that are just kind of immune to newts, whether it's because of cat batteries or, multiple cat boosters, or in the case of battleships, 3200s. Like 2 heavy newts just don't really cut it anymore to like actually start affecting people. So I'd rather just go all in on DPS. The 800 millimeter autocannons provide about an extra 250 DPS with hail. And then obviously the bulk of your damage is going to be with the torpedoes. So you're doing, 2,200 DPS with the torpedoes. Or no, maybe in this case it's actually closer to 2,000 with the torpedoes underheated. 250 from the guns, and then you have 5 heavy drones. That's about another 350. Now, I've flown this version a couple times, and I actually decided that I think it's better just to splurge and go and basically finish pimping out the lows on this. So that's going to be this fit. And this ends up being a lot better for the situations that you're trying to do, in my opinion. It kind of matches up better with a polarized fit. So let's throw in that and that just for, max DPS. So the reason why I think this is better, even though it is quite a bit more expensive, you're looking at 1.5 to 1.6 billion, is that one, you finish fleshing out your tank, so you have a full faction plate, and then you have T2 Trimarks. Again, with the 3 mid-grades, that gets you over 100,000. You get 106,000 EHP, so that's about 9,000 more than we had previously. Not a huge gain, but every little bit counts. But the big thing is the triple Cal Navy BCUs. That helps get you closer to it. It pretty much gets you right at 3,000 DPS. Once you factor in the implants and pyro, and also now we have the new daily login boosters, which also give you an extra like 2 to 5% DPS, plus the Garistas boosters from the April event. That all gets you pretty close to 3,000 DPS or over it. You can actually get to 3,500 DPS on this if you like fully bling everything out and go with like the 5 or 6% rate of fire implants, and maybe the torpedo implants. You can start and then use like Pyro 9 and stuff like that. Again, you can get pretty close to 3,500 DPS at that point, but that's just kind of out of my comfort zone as far as what I want to spend, especially on consumables. So this is a little bit more balanced in my opinion. But again, this pretty much the same thing as the other one, just everything's better, and this one just kind of melts through pretty much anything minus Marauders. So, but I still haven't fully been able to test this on Marauder because it's hard to find one that is not you know, it's just, I mean, honestly, it's just hard to find one that's that you can still kill even with 3,000 DPS. Because even like a Vargur with just an invuln, like a T2 invuln and a heated X type, is tanking like 3,000 or 3,500 DPS pretty easily. The only thing that I'd be confident in taking out with one of these is a single rep Kronos or a single rep Paladin. But Golems and Vargurs are both very difficult just because of how easily they scale. But either way, I mean, this obliterates almost any other subcap and potentially other battleships. So I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's nice having this much DPS because it lets you kill things very quickly and escape before things dogpile you. In this first fight, I kept going back and forth through a gate. I was trying to get a Demos to tackle me. He had an interceptor on the other side, so the interceptor stuck on the other side, and then the Demos kind of rams here, which is expected. And I messed up a little bit because I thought I aggroed my drones on him, but they ended up just shooting one of his drones, but it didn't really matter. As you can tell, I was applying really well. He actually tried to counterfeit me with a afterburner. He swapped from afterburner or from a mark warp drive to an afterburner. But because he was still so close to me with the grapple, I was able to fully apply, and as you can tell, the 2,000 DPS kind of cleared it out. This next fight is against Ikitursa. I was actually roaming test space or outer passage, and wasn't really finding anyone, but I had done like, I don't know, 10 jumps through this area, and I was on my way back, and this Ikitursa was sitting on the gate waiting for me. And I've actually been wanting to fight an Ikitursa for a long time because I fought many of them, and most of the time they're too tanky for me to break. So this is kind of the perfect scenario. And this one's with a cat battery and a cat booster, so newts wouldn't have really mattered in this scenario, but he's a dual A-type. And as you can tell, I think he ADCUs pretty much like probably 5 or 8 seconds ago. And once that ADCU goes down, though, then he just kind of gets volleyed. So I was pretty happy about that. Again, you know, most Ikitursas are pretty blingy, so he dropped all that stuff. You know, honestly, I was just more happy that I killed an Ikitursa, because I think that's the first one I've killed. But you know, I think I plugged this fit in, and with I don't know if he even had Asclepians in, but the even the base like tank on that I think was around 1,000 DPS. So if you had the Asclepians, then it would have been like 1,500 cold. So still a pretty tanky fit, but it was a lot of fun. In this fight, I was actually being chased by like an 8-man gang from Brave, and I was trying to separate them through multiple systems, and I think, well, I ended up losing probably 5 or 6 of them. So this is kind of all that's left of what ended up chasing me. But I thought it was interesting because, I mean, I think they did a pretty good job with just, you know, an executioner, a griffin, and then a confessor, all things considered. Because they kept the griffin at range, so I couldn't put drones on him right off the bat. And then the executioner came in to scram while I was jammed, so, you know, then I couldn't, you know, potentially escape. So I was kind of waiting for like the blob to jump in here, but they never did. So I'm more showcasing this because, you know, eventually I do break through, just to show the application and the damage that's possible even against, you know, potentially untackled targets. And it's like right now I get the executioner right, the griffin misses a jam. It shows the good utility just in general. The battleship, you know, without the newts, not a huge deal. It wouldn't have really mattered here, and I'm able to still work around being jammed just because, again, Navy battleships have typically better sensor strength than typical battleships, except for pirates. Pirate battleships have about the same sensor strength. So I get jammed again here, and I'm able to relock the executioner. And then I also notice that the griffin is finally within range of my drones. I can put drones on them to force them off. I then also use my autocannons to shoot at them, because the autocannons are loaded with depleted uranium, so I'm not using hail or anything like that. What would have been better is if I could have put barrage in them. It's just I didn't really have time. And even then, I don't know if that would have given me enough range to hit them. But that forces the Griffin off. So now I'm kind of free to shoot back at this Confessor. He's not tackled, but, I've got the target painter on him. Missile computer, crash is active, and I'm able to essentially two-shot him with my torpedoes here. And I think the reason why that happened is because he slowed down right as the second volley came in. So I was roaming through Losec and Iridia, and I came across a camp where they had a Gnosis with a Logi or T1 Logi. So I go ahead and see if I can just punch through the Logi with the DPS that I've got. And actually the Logi was distracted for a little bit on the Malediction because he was taking gate guns from aggro. So it looks like he was just repping the Malediction for half the fight. But, I was able to kind of burn through this Gnosis here before, Logi started repping right at the end, but it was really minor amount, so I was just able to punch right through it. And then the Logi took reps off the Malediction, so he was low, and I was able just to kind of one-tap him with what he had left with the torpedoes. And then all that's left is just their link ship and the T1 Logi. So they had another Gnosis on scan, but I don't know where it went. So at this point, it's kind of continuing along because I was just trying to get back to my wormhole since I got rolled out. For the next Polarized fits I'm going to share is going to be on the Tempest Fleet issue. Honestly, armor battleships tend to do a lot better with Polarized fits and shield fits. I mean, the easy answer, the obvious answer is because armor plates have a bigger raw HP bonus than shield extenders. Even though shield extenders get 100% bonus to hit points, their base value is already really low, whereas the armor plates provide a bigger base bonus, plus they're being bonused by 50% on top of that. So just any polarized fit, whether it's a battleship, cruiser, or anything like that, if you're adding raw hit points, then that's like exactly what you want for a polarized fit, which is why things like the Navy Auger do so well, because you can stack like 2 plates plus the layering membranes plus the hull bonus and rigs and stuff like that to get you a really solid number, and still get 800 to 1000 DPS out of that ship. So it's kind of the same thing here. You're stacking the most HP you can get to get the highest HP number for a polarized fit. And this even kind of applies on even typically shield bonus ships. Like I was tinkering with some of the Caldari ships like the Raven, the Navy Raven, the Rogue. They have 5 lows. Typically, I don't go over 3 damage mods, but if you take out, so if you do like triple BCU on a Raven, you can actually just put 2 armor plates and then the remaining lows to give you a decent bump on your HP values, and then also still use like 1 or 2 shield extenders in the mids just to get you more HP for polarized fit. So it kind of helps on the typical shield bonus ships, but even then they're still kind of lacking. So again, I just find it's a lot better to use typically more armor bonus ships for polarized fits, just again because they scale better. But so this is the Tempest Fleet issue. I went with this one because the Tempest Fleet is I think it's a little underestimated. It's a good ship like in fleets, but it's not something you typically see solo. And again, because it is primarily a fleet ship, people don't expect that you're a DPS or polarized fit or anything like that. This I have been keeping intentionally cheap. You can pimp them more if you want. It's just I don't think it's quite as worth it compared to the Typhoon Fleet issue. The one nice thing about the Tempest Fleet issue is it does get more tank than the Typhoon Fleet issue. Again, with the 3 mid grades I have right now are 110,000 HP. I think without the mid grades are like 103 or 104,000. So it's still pretty decent for how cheap the fitting is. Also, I got a bunch of these for free from a corp mate, so I don't feel the need to spend a bunch on them. They're just really fun and easy to whelp, especially when you have the holes. And even if you had to buy them, granted it's not necessarily cheap, but it's not too bad at 730 million. Now the Tempest Fleet issue does have multiple missile launcher hardpoints, so again I did the same thing here where I took out, instead of putting double heavy newts, I put in rapid heavies. You could put in torpedo launchers, the polarized torpedo launchers on this if you wanted, but I don't think it's worth it because there's too much of a sacrifice there to get torpedoes to apply. Yeah, we got double webs, but I mean, really you just need a grappler to get the speed slow enough on most ships. But I wanted the second web, because I want my guns to be able to track properly. Just a grappler only typically isn't going to let your guns track. But with torpedoes, again, like I need to drop like an armor rig for a rigger, just to get some more application. So then I lose tank, and now we're down to 99,000 or like 95,000 if you don't have the implants in. So it's just too much of a sacrifice in my opinion. I'd rather just keep these because, to be honest with you, if you have to clip with your rapid heavies in a polarized fit, you're probably dead anyway. So by the time these run out, the fight should be over, or at least whatever's holding you should be dead, so you can just micro jump drive out. The only disadvantage is the reload on them. It's just you kind of have to plan ahead for whatever you're fighting to make sure you have the right missile loaded. But yeah, I mean, again, this is just a really simple kind of point towards whatever you want to die, and it dies kind of ship fit. The DPS isn't as high as the Typhoon fleet issue. We're only about 1900 DPS before heat, and then with heat you go up to 2150. Again, with pyro and all the other drugs you can use, you can get to about 2400, which is still pretty decent. And again, a lot of people just don't expect that out of a Tempest. So it's just a very good platform that people don't expect. And again, it's nice and simple to use. So I was roaming nullsec from our wormhole. There was some activity a few jumps away, so I was in this system, and I noticed an Arazu had popped up on scan. So I actually just warped to this ESS. Now Arazu warps here next to me, but then he warps off. So, obviously if you see an Arazu, and especially if you're in a battleship, I just assume they're coming to light a Sino on you. So I was a little bit safe in this ESS. I got a Jaguar that's ramming me here. Right now I'm not putting my guns on him. I just put missiles and drones on him with a target painter, and right as I put missiles and drones on him, he starts to burn away. So he's not committing quite yet. And I noticed he's just trying to pull my drones away, so I just go ahead and pull my drones back because I don't want him to carry them across the ESS grid. And then he starts to burn back in again, and this time he actually hard tackles me. And I don't put guns on him right away because I'm kind of just waiting to see what's going to happen, and plus I want to make sure his speed is as low as it can go, so he's not coasting anymore. You also notice that a Sino just popped up on the overview, so that Arazu warped off, just off grid to pop a Sino. And at this point I go ahead and I took drop, and now I'm fully applying to the Jaguar. He goes down, and then the Cyclone tackles me, and I switched to my DPS drones on the Tempest. One thing I forgot to mention is that my drones are mixed on the Tempest to mess with reactive armor hardeners, but it's 2 heavies, 2 mediums, and 1 small drone. And I'm able to apply all my damage to this Cyclone, and he melts pretty fast. The Hecate actually stops. He doesn't burn directly at me, because I think because I nuked the Cyclone so fast, and that makes him hesitate, and right as that happens, 2 Hells warp in. So I was already kind of pre-aligned, and I was able to warp out before the Hells were able to do any damage to me, or before the Hecate tackled me. So you always have to be a little bit mindful of your alignment point, especially with a quad plate battleship, because they're just really slow to align. But in this next fight, I am roaming Solitude and Low Sec. This is actually kind of a fun area to roam. And I noticed Loki kept popping up on D-scan, and I figured he was a Sino Loki. And we both kind of jumped the gate at the same time, so I just kind of figured, well, we'll see what happens here. I lock him, and again, with this being low sec, we're right on a gate, so I can't aggro him immediately, so I'm just kind of waiting. I'm assuming he's just going to burn into me and point me or scram me and then light the Sino, so I just kind of sit here and wait, see what happens. Once he does scram me, which I think he does here in just a moment, I don't do any damage to him because my priority isn't the Loki, because any Sino ship typically has no damage on it. So I'm just preparing to see what comes in. I think I do shoot him one time just so I can kind of see what kind of tank he's got. He looks like he's just running some kind of perma shield fit. So I shoot him once and then I don't care, and I'm just waiting to see what Sino's in. And he ends up Sinoing in 3 sins. And I end up making a mistake here because, again, this is low sec, and I forgot, even though they're literally Sinoing 3 ships on me that are going to attack me, they're not currently aggressed. So I actually aggress the sin first, which then puts gate guns on me. So now I'm taking damage from the gate guns and 3 sins. But I did kind of catch them by surprise here because this first sin just isn't really doing a whole lot. They're all shield fit, and I'm able to just kind of melt right through them with the 2300 DPS, even though I don't have any cap. It's still enough for me to pulse the scram every once in a while. Then I move to the second sin, kind of the same thing. I'm trying to just burn them down as fast as possible. But again, this kind of goes back to the mistake I made earlier of taking gate guns. The other issue I had is I didn't take the login booster because I had one that gave me like 4% more HP. So if I hadn't have taken gate guns and I'd taken that booster, I think I would have had enough time to take out this second sin. So not really an issue with the ship. Just I think I made a mistake, but still, I bagged a sin kill with the Tempest, so I think it worked out. In this fight, I was roaming around Vinal, and I kind of went to a dead-end system where there was a couple guys out. They kept on docking like a Sleipnir and I think a Mega, but then they reshipped into just this Arazu. And since it was a dead-end system, I had to jump back out of this gate anyway, so I was just like, whatever, we'll see what happens. So the Arazu points and scrams me from about 20 kilometers. I have Hail loaded, and then he has a TD, but he doesn't optimal range script it. I think he had just the tracking scripts loaded, which doesn't really matter when you're going to be sitting still with a Sino. But being he was at like 17, 18 kilometers, Hail wasn't applying great, but once I started getting a little bit closer, it ended up applying pretty well. And then he Sinos in a carrier. So, anyone who thinks I'm not getting Sinoed on all the time, I've got plenty of examples. So the carrier points me at this point. He wasn't really doing a whole lot of damage with the drones. Not that I really probably could have stuck around. I mean, it would have been potentially fun, but just didn't know what else was coming. So I'll go ahead and MJD to get away from the carrier, get away from the fighters, and I'm able to warp away here. So this is kind of how most Sino drops go. I'm either aiming to kill the Sino and get out, or maybe kill something juicy and die, but sometimes I just die and don't get anything, so it's just kind of how it goes. In this last fight, I warp into a bubble camp because they had a Pilgrim, Caracal, and Cerberus. So I was like, that sounds like a decent challenge. As I warp into the bubble, land at range from the Cerberus, so I go ahead and just micro jump on him. Who doesn't enjoy a good micro jump dunk? But I mean, as soon as I do that, the Caracal warps off. The Pilgrim stayed cloaked, so he didn't do anything. Not a whole lot going on here. He kind of coasts just barely out of my scram range, but I'm able to reel him back in at the end. And, then applying the 2000 DPS directly to the forehead. But, got to include the micro jump dunks. So there you go. And that'll be it for this video. Some of the fights were all right. Again, I wish I could have gotten a little bit more fights with, against battleships, or maybe even find a marauder somewhere that would be feasible to fight. It's just, kind of didn't happen. Most everyone knows kind of the state of the game. So, finding fights is getting harder and harder, at least fights that you can actually take that are reasonable. So obviously being pure solo, there's only so much that you can really fight. But otherwise, I think these are a lot of fun. hopefully once the new patch comes out where faction battleships and Navy battleships are cheaper, or at least materials are lower, they'll be a little bit more affordable, so easier to weld polarized fits like this. Otherwise though, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.